What's going on, man? Welcome back to the basement. I'm Ron, and it's Tuesday morning, which means it's time to set our waivers for week 4 of the fantasy football season. Today, we're going to talk through 10 to 15 players that you must add, all under 50% owned in ESPN leagues. As always, if you enjoy, make sure down below, subscribe, leave a like if you enjoyed, and let's get straight into it. And at first on our list, we have Braelon Allen. Now, I do want to give a big disclaimer. I've been getting comments. Ron, you're listing 15 players. I can't add all these guys on my bench. Of course not. The idea here is all under 50% owned in ESPN leagues. So that means about half of you guys will have these guys available. And the idea is you go through this list, you see who's available, and I want to cater to everybody, right? Some of you guys out there are in a 10-man, 2 wide receiver, 1 flex league. If that's the case, you don't need Tutu Atwell on your team. Some of you guys are in a 2 flex, 2 wide receiver, 14 teamer where guys like Wan'Dale Robinson might be interesting to you. So I'm trying to cover all my bases. I'm going to get the top priority guys up top here, like a Braelon Allen, and we'll get deeper as we go. If you're in a 10-team, 2 wide receiver, 1 flex league, after the first 5 players, you can certainly check out. But I just want to cover all my bases and just sort of explain how we do these videos. Now, of course, if you want my entire waiver wire article, as soon as this video goes live, I'm going to start writing that on the Patreon, patreon.com/Ron Stewart. I'll have an article, how much fab I'm bidding on each and every single player. So with Braelon Allen, he put on a show on Monday Night Football. He put on a show versus the Titans, and he is just too good to be denied. Even on, he had 13 opportunities this past game, 11 opportunities before then. And that's kind of the interesting part is Pearsall is still a 20-point per game running back and still balling out of his mind. But Braelon Allen is earning his share of touches. And the interesting part is, too, is he's not directly eating into Pearsall's snap share because we're seeing a lot of pony personnel where it's Braelon Allen and it's Pearsall. When Braelon Allen had like a screen game touchdown that was pretty much a fake screen to Pearsall the other side of the field and then work back to Braelon Allen. And of course, everyone's going to Brees, so Braelon Allen was wide open. I want to say that was against the Titans, but I'm not 100% sure. I'm going to say it was, but he just looks electric, man. He is averaging 5.1 yards per carry. That's the RB11. He's 15th in rushing yards over expected per attempt, 7th in EPA per rush, 6th in success rate, and he is the RB30 in points per game right now. I actually have a league that's a 0 RB league, of course, with my good buddy Jacob Sanderson, and we actually decided to start Braelon Allen as our RB2, and that worked out well. He put up like 10 points. He right now has a higher points per game than Josh Jacobs, Najee Harris, Rachaad White, Javonte Williams, DeAndre Swift. So Braelon Allen is no longer in handcuff territory, but he's now this like boom-bust RB3 you can put in your RB2 spot if you're desperate, if you need to. For me, he is somebody, even as just like a handcuff, he is now a tier above the rest as like the must-own handcuff, kind of almost trending towards your David Montgomery area of not just a handcuff, but a standalone play as well. So he's somebody I'd be putting a big fab bid on. Now, somebody, shout out to Robin Raids, Jauan Jennings. I acknowledge you. All right, what this guy just did, 46.5 PPR points. You can see here, he is the wide receiver 4 after that week, only rostered in 36.2% of ESPN leagues, and he had 12 targets, 11 receptions, 175 receiving yards, and 3 touchdowns. Now, obviously, that won't hold. But in week 1, on a 49% snap share, he had 5 targets, 5 catches, 64 yards. So this is a guy who can 100% play. It is not super fluky. This is a cool stat from Davis Maddock as well. His 46.5 PPR points this week are the 9th most of any 49er ever, and has only been bested 4 times by Jerry Rice and once by Terrell Owens. Think about all the games Jerry Rice has played. And then he also passed Debo's career high in fantasy points. He passed Brandon Ayuk's career high in fantasy points. So that's not to say he's better than them, but he has a 22% target share on the season. And until the 49ers are fully healthy, which seems pretty far out, right? Debo Samuel has this kind of like lingering lower body injury. Same thing with Kittle. McCaffrey's flying overseas for a specialist, which, by the way, it might be GG's on McCaffrey over an entire season. If he's flying to Germany for a specialist, That's really not good. I was going to add him here, but I thought it was too deep. If you are in a deep league, Isaiah Garendo, as now Jordan Mason's handcuff, is a good pickup as well. But yeah, Jauan Jennings now a guy you can flex for as long as the 49ers are banged up. Our third must-add player here, Cam Akers. He's out there in about 2/3 of leagues, and this is just simply in case of Joe Mixon missing more time. You can see from this tweet by Deepak Chona at the bottom, Joe Mixon, his most common return date followed by range of outcomes. He's thinking week 5. He could be back anywhere from weeks 4 through 6. So you could pick up Cam Akers and not have to play him this week, or you could pick up Cam Akers and have 2 games to play him in. Now, this was a nightmare scenario for Akers. The Texans trailed the entire game. That means Daria Ogunbowale is going to play a lot of the game. It's not going to be a lot of rush attempts. It's going to be a lot of pass attempts, but he still got home. 9 carries, 21 yards, 3 targets, 1 catch, 8 yards, and a touchdown. That touchdown gave you just enough that if you put him in the RB2 in a desperate situation, you were probably fine. Now, our fourth player here is disgusting, to be honest. Cordarelle Patterson. He's available everywhere. He is just a speculative ad is what I'll call him. But we had, Cam Akers was a speculative ad last week, right? We didn't have enough info on if Mixon would miss. Mixon came back in that same game and was okay, and he's also been good off of high ankle sprains before. So that's the thing with Cordarelle Patterson. You can make a bid on him, but I wouldn't make it under the assumption that he is going to be playing this week. But we have Najee Harris has his arm in a sling, and you have Jaylen Warren getting an MRI on his knee. There is no guarantee that the Steelers running backs can't go. There's a good chance one of them probably can. If they both miss, I wouldn't put it past Arthur Smith to get the gang back together and, hit up some other running backs that he's used in the past. But for now, Cordarelle Patterson would be the RB1. You would get a lot in the receiving game, a lot in the rushing game, and be top 24 option, top 25 option against a really, really light Colts defense this week. So someone to pick up if you need somebody for the short term. Then we just have kind of a retread on the Chiefs for our 5th and 6th players here. Samaje Perine and Clyde Edwards-Helaire. We had this split. Of course, wasn't great for Perine, just 10 touches, had a 35% snap share to Carson Steele's 65, but I am still somewhat optimistic that he can work into a bigger role as the year goes on and he gets familiar with the playbook. And then, of course, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, it's tough to speak on. He was dealing with PTSD from a weird incident he had in college for self-defense or whatever. I don't want to speak too much on what he's going through, but it seems that they were positive on the broadcast on Sunday night that he could be back soon. And if he is, he has the most experience in this offense. So in deep leagues, he's definitely worth a stash. Our 7th player here is going to be Bucky Irving. He is the RB35. He's available in about 2/3 of leagues right now, and it's really only a matter of time until he forces a damn near 50-50 split here. This is a good stat from Mason. Rachaad White, 31 carries for 66 yards. Bucky Irving, 24 for 145. There's only so long that the Rachaad White defenders can keep saying, oh, well, Rachaad White gets all the stacked boxes. Bucky Irving gets the light boxes, whatever. At the end of the day, Bucky Irving has been a better rusher, a more explosive rusher, and you can see from the Underdog tweet here that Todd Bowles has even acknowledged it now, saying Bucky Irving has earned more snaps moving forward. Then we have Rico Dowdle, who is out there again, 2/3 of leagues on ESPN. Nothing crazy this week, but the usage is starting to get better. He's about a league average running back in a room full of dust. And you can see Bob Sturm here in terms of Dallas RB success rates. Dowdle at 44%. 44% is not an amazing number, but it is far better than Zeke Elliott. It's far better than Deuce Vaughn. He is by far their best running back. Now, again, we've talked about this in the past. That's just, being the best-looking guy in a Walmart. But if the Walmart is the Cowboys, then it's kind of like being the best-looking guy in a Rolex store. There's a lot to be had here. But then we have J.J. Zacharyson below him. Rico Dowdle saw his running back rush share jump from 42% in weeks 1 and 2 to 62% in week 3. He played 22 more snaps than Ezekiel Elliott per PFF. Part of this was game script related, but the Cowboys also used Dowdle more to open the game. So Dowdle, it could be Dowdle season soon. He looked like, again, he is not by any means a very, very good running back. He is just a replacement level running back in a room full of duds. After that, we have the Bears running backs. This is just a bet against DeAndre Swift, who is just absolutely brutal. I think that this stat outlines it pretty well of starting RBs versus the Colts. Mixon gives you 159 yards. Jacobs gives you 151 yards. DeAndre Swift, 20 rushing yards, 1.5 yards per carry. He is league worst in every major statistic for running backs, whether that's yards per carry, EPA per rush, success rate, anything like that. He is brutal. So we could see some, Miles Sanders, Alexander Madison treatment that we saw last year. Remember, those guys came in, they were supposed to be the lead running backs, and then after like week 4, week 5, they were completely phased out. I would 100% expect that here. Now, Roschon Johnson's probably the guy to own, as he had the best utility over at Fantasy Life. Shout out to them for their utilization report. He had targets, he ran routes, he had short yardage stuff, he had the long down and distance and 2-minute drill snaps. He's a very fun prospect. He was at Texas behind Bijan, but he's like this rocked up 220-pound running back, but he's the receiving back. So he's kind of like a Samaje Perine would be my realistic comp for him, of like big dude, can hammer between the tackles and short yardage, can hammer between the tackles on goal line, but then also pass protect and then also come out of the backfield for a pass. So that's all really, really fun for a fantasy running back. And then Khalil Herbert, I just think is a good back. They keep going to him. You can see here 60% of the inside the 5 attempts. He leads the team in inside the 5 carries, even though he's not that rocked up 220 guy. They seem to trust him the most in those high leverage spots of 3rd and short, 4th and short, goal line. So at a certain point, this team, the same way that they did with Gerald Everett this week, are just going to have to move on from Swift and say he absolutely sucks. We need to see what else is here. And when that happens, I think Khalil Herbert and Roschon Johnston will be interesting. Then we have Xavier Legette, who I absolutely love. He was a very fun prospect, dominant final year at South Carolina. And we now get Adam Thielen expected to miss some time. And actually, as I'm recording this video, he got put on IR. So he's on IR. He's out minimum 4 weeks, which gives Xavier Legette all of the runway in the world to ascend up this depth chart with a quarterback upgrade on Andy Dalton. I cannot stress enough, like Xavier Legette in a league where, like, okay, if you're down horrendous and you need a wide receiver 3 this week, go get Jauan Jennings, go get whoever. But if your team is good and you're just looking for a stash play on your bench that can maybe be amazing down the stretch, and why we like these rookie wide receivers, right? You can see here, as the season goes on, rookie wide receivers get better, veterans decrease, right? And I want Xavier Legette for what he can be on this end of the chart. So if I have a spot to stash him, I absolutely would. You can see the yards per out run here. He blows everybody not named Deontay and Thielen out of the water, and that's as a rookie. Xavier Legette, 1.33 yards per out run. John Mingo is currently running in front of him. 0.88 yards per out run is just not NFL wide receiver stuff. I think very, very soon we see him jump Mingo, get to 70% plus of the snaps, and then we could really be cooking with Xavier Legette, especially if we get some of that schemed up rushing game usage with Legette. So keep an eye on him. He is, to me, the best stash at wide receiver. Then we have Quentin Johnston here, still running hot. He's probably not available in your league, but he is the wide receiver 18, Quentin Johnston. He has 3 touchdowns so far. He's only expected for like 1.3, so it's kind of fluky. He's like the wide receiver 51 in usage right now, but he's a top 24 wide receiver attached to Herbert. Of course, Herbert's banged up, but I think they do have a week 5 bye, so he's fine as a guy if you need to flex him. I think another decent like stash/flex is Mike Williams. He's out there only half of leagues right now, but we're seeing his routes climb, right? Go 19%, then 73%, came down to 55%, but you got to remember this was on a short week on a Thursday night game. So I think that they played Sunday at 1 p.m. and then Thursday. So I want to say there was some rest in there, but he did get targets. He's been this go-to like jump ball guy for Rodgers. They tried to get him one in the end zone as well last week. So he's going to be involved in this offense. And for an offense that I really disregarded for the beginning of the season and just sort of in the offseason, this is an offense that is 13th in passing yards, tied for 3rd in passing touchdowns, and 5th in EPA per pass play. So there's going to be points to go around outside of Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson. Then we have Tutu Atwell, which is for deep leagues, but we called him out last week. He's available everywhere, and he actually had the 2nd most routes this week for Rams wide receivers. This is from Nathan Yankee's recaps of every game. You can see he ran the 2nd most routes. He led the team in targets. He ends up with 13.3 PPR points. And until Puka Nacua or Kupp are back, he is a flex play. Similar deal with Wan'Dale Robinson. It's not all that sexy, but he's the wide receiver 30 in expected points per game. He's the wide receiver 37 in points per game. He's this high-ish floor, low ceiling, low ADOT type of gadget guy, but he's kind of a PPR scam, which is sort of fine. If he's your second flex in a 2 wide receiver 2 flex league, he can certainly be viable. Then I want to talk about some more rookie wide receiver stashes. This is, again, if you're set at wide receiver and you just want some upside for later on in the season and you have spots, or maybe you have an IR spot you can use, I really like Ricky Pearsall for the reason of he's working back. from his injury. He is in a wide receiver room that has no Deebo Samuel right now, no McCaffrey, no Kittle. Seems like he's going to be back over the next few weeks. You take him, you stash him either on your IR or the bottom of the bench, and you see what happens when he returns to the field. He was a first-round pick in the NFL. Those guys are usually good at football. And then you have Troy Franklin in here, which we can look at the rookie receiver report real quick. He didn't do anything with the ball, right? You can see towards the bottom. I'm trying to find him. Yeah, he's right under here. 0% of the routes in week 1, then 18%, then 30% of the routes. So he's sort of climbing up here, had a 26.3% targets per out run, but that is all you can really write home about. So, I mean, 5 targets on 30% of the routes is good. He just did nothing with those targets, but if he can get on the field, he can continue to earn targets. He already has a connection to Bo Nix. They both played at Oregon together. He has speed that this offense is lacking. Troy Franklin, I think, is a really interesting deep league stash. And then we'll just talk about some tight ends and quarterbacks real quick. First, we got Cole Kmet. He's the tight end 3 on the year right now. He is the tight end 4 in expected points per game. So that's just based on his usage, his volume, his end zone targets behind Jake Ferguson, McBride, Kittle is Cole Kmet. He is very much an every week starter. If this usage here tracks from fantasy life, 33% of the routes, then 62%, then 73%, just completely rising up this depth chart, pushing Gerald Everett down, 27% target per out run, over 20% target per out run in the entire season. And like I said, he is the tight end 3 right now in fantasy. So Cole Kmet, fire him up as a tight end 1 the rest of the way as long as this usage sticks. And then we'll talk about Tyler Conklin. Similar deal to Mike Williams of this passing offense being much better than we thought. Tyler Conklin leads all tight ends with 90% routes run. So on 90% of Jets pass plays, he's running a route. And I think it makes some sense for a guy in Aaron Rodgers who isn't all the way up to speed with every single one of these Jets pass catchers now, that he probably doesn't know how good Tyler Conklin has been in years past. But 6 targets, 5 catches, 93 yards for Conklin, kind of his coming out party this week. And if it holds moving forward, that is absolutely huge for him to kind of get into that Hunter Henry territory of weekly tight end plays. And then my quarterback streamer of the week is Justin Fields. He's available in 75% of ESPN leagues. He gets the Colts, who have allowed 398.3 yards per game to opponents, the second most in the NFL. They just got, I mean, you had Caleb Williams have a good day. Roma Dunze have a good day against them. The Packers absolutely killed them. You had, of course, the Texans had an amazing day on them. They are just a very, very weak defense, and Justin Fields is starting to get into a nice rhythm now. That is going to do it for us today. As always, if you enjoyed, make sure you leave a like, subscribe if you're new. Leaving likes, all that good stuff, helps out the channel a ton this time of year. And I will ask as well, make sure you check out the Patreon, patreon.com/Ron Stewart. That is where I will have my weekly waiver wire article where I give you all of these players, plus like 20 more. I have every single quarterback I think is worth adding, wide receiver, running back, tight end, and I also have a little blurb for each one and how much fab you should be bidding in each of your leagues. So if that sounds interesting, check it out. If not, as always, I love y'all, and I will see you in the next one.
Stones, like this froze, ice cold, ice around my body like